Welcome to Dear 16-Year-Old Me. My name is Chanel T. Molina. Well, a few things. Just Stick a Fork in It, Chanel T. Molina Consulting, Storybook Scrunchies. In the words of Daniel Hillard in Mrs. Doubtfire, I cook, I bake, I sew. I also read, I write, whatever. I've journaled since I was 9, and here you'll find those entries of drama, enough hyperbole to make your head explode, and mainly reflections of a kid who had no idea how to navigate life. She thought she knew, but she had no idea, and still kinda doesn't. Come with me on this journey of basically self-diagnosis. Hope you enjoy. Hi. The things that I want to talk about, first of all, I'm going to definitely talk about what I promised you. We're going to talk about boys for sure. There's a few housekeeping things that I'd like to go over. First, there is a lot to cover here. The entry itself is fairly short, but the explanations around that entry are pretty loaded. I want to preface this with a little bit of a content warning or a trigger warning. There's going to be a couple cuss words. Just for authenticity's sake, I want to leave them in whole because that's what I wrote. And yeah, you'll be pretty much entering my sophomore year. I took beginner's auto shop. Everybody would assume that I took that class because of the ratio of boys to girls. Like, you know how guys, there's always that thing like guys signing up for home ec because of the ratio of guys to girls. You're just completely outnumbered. Yeah, I mean, I guess, but and you know, in all honesty, I wasn't like 1,000,000% into cars. My best friend from high school, Jessica, the one who got me the Alien Ant Farm album in the last episode, she had been discussing it with her dad and she signed up for it. When sophomore year rolled around, we got our schedules and we were in different periods. And she made me switch into her period. I don't remember the logistics. I ended up doing it. It was like no big deal. But when I walked into her class, because she was like, I'm the only girl in this whole class. There was 4 people to a group and she had 1 guy in her group. So with me joining, that still left us at 3. And our poor partner in that class, I mean, he must have felt so horrible. You got stuck with the 2 girls in the whole class to get the whole year done. And we didn't switch, like you were stuck. It was me and Jessica and this guy for the whole year. And I will give it to him. I ran into him after high school a couple times and he's still like the nicest guy. And he never had any resentment or anything. And the whole year still, and this was 20 years ago now, are stuck in my brain. The things that happened in that class. And that's what I'm going to tell you guys about today. So beware, a little bit of cussing, a lot of bit of sexist gender stuff, and all this boy talk. All right, let's do it. In Beginner's Auto Shop, one of the big projects, like the big project of the school year, is that you have to take apart and put back together a single cylinder engine, which is a lawnmower engine or something very similar. You have to take it apart, recalibrate everything, make sure it runs. If you don't have an engine at the end of the year that runs, you don't pass the class. We had us 3, me, Jessica, and this other guy. And then right next to us in the next station were this group of 4 guys. 2 of them were really cool. And then 2 of them were just, I swear, they were just there to like torment the 2 girls in the class the whole year. Which I feel like there's always just a couple dudes that just ruin it for everybody. And these were those guys. I call him Flyaway because me and Jessica were getting gas one day. And while we were getting gas, this car drives by with like the windows down, like super loudly playing Sugar Ray's Fly. That's why we call him Flyaway. It is pretty funny that I didn't remember that I called him that until I read these journals. And that was this secret name we gave him because when we talked crap about him, that's what we would say. And he wouldn't know that it was him that we were talking about. He was just so rude all the time and thought he knew so much more. I'm like, you wouldn't be in beginner's auto shop if you didn't have something to learn, right? It was pretty evident by how their engine ran, I'll say that he needed the class more than we did. Anyway, that's all. The guy who ended up not tormenting me, but we definitely had issues with each other. We worked side by side, and you'll hear about it in the entry. And then another guy, Troy, who was one of Flyaway's partners, and then they also had another guy who, this is the type of person I was in high school. And junior high too. At some point, I developed some sort of defense mechanism where I was basically like, you can't mess with me, and this is the vibe I'm intentionally giving you, so you don't make fun of me, especially in these classes where you're completely outnumbered gender-wise, and it's intimidating to be in those classes with people who know or who think they know more than you do automatically because of their gender, or they think they're stronger or whatever. One time, this guy who I would have called a friend in high school, he was in Flyaway and Troy's group, and he was nice except for this one time. I was laughing at something and he mocked my laugh. And I told him that I was going to stab him in the eye with a clicky pen and start clicking it. And he was like, geez. I was like, don't make fun of my laugh, bro. Not with it. Like, don't be that guy. So, on that note. The Jessica mentioned is the same Jessica that got me the Alien Ant Farm and 9/11 tribute CDs from the last episode. We met my freshman year. I entered the school about 2 months late. I moved from Daly City to Antioch, California. I had to start high school in Daly City, and then when we moved, they had already been in session for almost 2 months. Anyway, I met her in a math class that I had taken already in 7th grade, but there just was no room for me in any other class, I guess, is what they told me. So I took it, but that's where I met Jessica. And Jessica had gone to school with these kids her whole life prior, so it was kind of funny when she walked up to me and my other friend and asked to be in our group, because like I assumed she knew everybody in the class already, because these kids had already gone to school together forever. But the day I met her was the same day that a kid in our class got his glasses stolen. And I had PE the next class and we were swimming. So I had like a full change of clothes for after. And when they started searching everybody's backpacks, I asked Jessica to hold my underwear. I don't know if it was, I can't remember. She could probably tell you. I asked her to hold my underwear wherever, either in her backpack or like in a bag in her hoodie pocket or something. If there was any inclination that she was going to be a good friend to me, that was it. Then 2 weeks later, she allowed me to dye her blonde hair super red. And that was another one of those lessons learned. Red's really hard to get out of blonde hair after you hate it. I dyed my hair without bleaching it this purple. I just put purple over my black hair. And I remember going into her parents' bedroom and showing them, and they were like, what'd you do to your hair? And Jessica's got this huge transformation. Like, what happened? And I was like, oh, you could see it in the light. And she and I have gone through like a ton of different stuff over the years. But, you know, and there was a time where we weren't even friends for maybe a year or so. But she trusted me enough to sign a release form so I could talk about all this crap that we did. So that's a plus. Anytime that I mess up or stumble over my words, I can hear LD in my head making fun of me. So anyway, yeah, this one is for you, LD. They'll all be for you. February 6th, 2002, 10:43 p.m. I bought a pair of Dickies today, And also this like girly sweater. This sucks, changing my quote unquote image. Our engine ran hella smooth too. Yes. But I got called a bitch today. Do you know how bad that made me feel? No, you don't. It made me feel so awful. You have no idea. And Flyaway and Troy are the ones who said it. They're assholes. Love, Chanel. The rest of the story I didn't write about, probably because I figured I would have remembered the whole story, which I do. And I obviously never intended for anybody to read these, so I didn't feel like I had to explain every single thing. The rest of the story is that Troy and Flyaway were working on their engines right next to us. And as a side note, Jessica and I built most of the engine, and I'm not trying to throw our partner under the bus. It's just what happened. There was one part that we could not get, that we argued with him about for a few minutes, and like he even wrote it in my yearbook that he built the engine jokingly, but we couldn't get the valves in properly. Anyway, he stepped in and we argued about it for a few minutes, and then he ended up being successful. And Troy and Flyaway were giving him his props, and Flyaway said, yeah, whatever his name is, put that bitch in her place. And I did not take that very well. Like, even talking about it right now, I'm pissed off because I'm like, who do you even think you freaking are? But anyway, I got like this close to his face and I said, what did you say? And essentially making him repeat it like directly to my face because my back was turned to him. We worked side by side, but we were in different groups, obviously. And he said it again with his tail between his legs and his head was down. And all I said was, don't you ever say that about me again. And I'm not saying it was karma when their other group members started the engine on top of an extension cord, causing it to explode. And their engine didn't run at all on the first try, but you know. Sorry, side note. The guy that was sitting on top of the engine, that was on top of the extension cord, just happened to be the guy that I threatened to stab in the eye with a pen. Anyway, and I don't feel like I peaked in high school, but this is definitely on the list of one of those huge victories in my life. I can still remember how it felt to stand there with Jessica sitting on our engine as it ran like super smoothly. As every other engine, I think there was only one or two other groups. Out of maybe 8 groups, only 2 or 3 ran the first time, and nobody's ran as smoothly as ours. And it was honestly, it's probably luck a little bit, but it was also, you guys definitely didn't think that that was gonna happen. Shocker of the freaking year. Jessica and I still talk about it. We're still friends. That's what I'm saying. Keep the people who are gonna hide your underwear and deal with the trials and tribulations of stupid crap in beginner's auto shop. And it happened in advanced auto shop too. And then I TA'd for my teacher. I got a lot out of that class, but it wasn't all about cars. It taught me a ton on how to make sure that I'm treated in a way that was fair. And I'm obviously still learning. Like, you have to unlearn a bunch of stuff that you are taught as a kid to make sure that, you're prim and proper and, whatever. You have to act like a lady. Yeah, I get that. All people should act like decent human beings and treat people with respect. And I still get triggered by people who act opposite of that. And I think it started in that class. Because if that had happened a few years prior and I was still in Catholic school and, groomed to stay quiet and, just avoid confrontation. And yeah, it would have been a different story for sure. And being in that class taught me a crap ton about sexism, bullying, racism, and how girls are seen. And if I'm being honest, I wasn't used to it. because I went to school with the same 70 kids for 8 years, and that's what I was used to. And those kids knew me. And going from 70 kids for 8 years to 5,000 kids enrolled in a college campus-sized high school was jarring, for sure. I knew what I was getting into, but man, I was not prepared. And it also taught me about resiliency and proper and improper ways to be assertive and to make sure that you kept your head down and your hands moving. Your work will speak for itself. You can let them talk all they want. Their words do not define your worth. It was really empowering, especially as a girl being in a male-dominated class, to actually achieve stuff because you just knew that every person in that class didn't think you were going to be able to do it. I've always been a person who just wants to do things and not tell anybody about it, or, fly under the radar and not talk about it. Just be about it, do it, and then let your work speak for itself. That's exactly what happened in this class, not on purpose. I'm not saying it wasn't fun. I'm not saying I had the worst time. I'm saying some things were difficult because you had an extra layer of, if you're a guy, you're expected, to be into cars and to be whatever. And, you have to prove yourself. As an adult, I'm like, oh God, this is so stupid. I have nothing to prove to anybody. But it started then. This attitude that I have now started in that class. After doing what I did in that class, you couldn't tell me anything. We did it. And that's something I obviously, to this day, something that I'll always be proud of, and something that made me gain confidence in myself. I just finished this book. It's called The Professional Troublemaker by Lovie Ajayi-Jones, and she says something to the effect of, do it scared, because on the other side of fear is your purpose. And I'm not saying I found my purpose in beginner's auto, but knowing that I could take up space and knowing that it was okay that I took up that space was a pivotal moment in my life. I'm not even really sure that I'm allowed to shout that book out, but it's necessary because it's been a game changer. I highly recommend anybody read it. It is linked in the current reads section under resources on my website if you want to check it out, along with the other books that I've read recently and during the pandemic. And I know Gen Z gets a lot of flack for how they act and whatever, but the cool thing about them is that they're learning what the adults should have learned a long time ago. They've learned it a lot younger, and they're at a huge advantage because they've learned it so young that by the time they're adults, it's going to be common practice to have learned how people should be treated, which is it's pretty cool because we've definitely allowed a lot of things to just slide because we're taught to, not rock the boat. Be grateful you have the job, or be grateful that you have whatever, which totally, yeah, you should be, but also understanding that you also deserve that type of respect. If nobody's going to give it to you, at the very least, give it to yourself. And P.S., I know they're the generation that ate the Tide Pods. I get it. But they're also going to be the generation that turns this world upside down. Again. So we got to give them some credit because they've already had to deal with a bunch of crap. I see you, Gen Z. So I'm trying to hit the heavy hitters of my life in the first 5 episodes, which this season will be 5 episodes. Next season will be however many, I don't know yet. But I just wanted to give you guys a glimpse of my life over the course of a couple years. This next episode will be about my dad. So you had one about my mom, and now you get one about my dad. So we'll see how that one goes. All right. Love ya. Thanks for listening to Dear 16-Year-Old Me with your host, Chanel T. Molina. You can find me at ChanelTMolina.com. That is CHANELLE, T as in Tom, MOLINA.com. Or on Instagram, Chanel T. Molina, or you can shoot me an email at hello@ChanelTMolina.com. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. Stay tuned for the next episode where I talk about my relationship as a teenager with my dad, Bobby.